Hello, hello. Elisa Meredith here with my friend Jennifer Priest, and today we're going to be talking about getting started with Pinterest idea pins. Jennifer, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm glad to be here. Always
Good.
fun to chat with you about Pinterest.
I feel the same way. And you know what? I didn't even have time to tell you before that I was just on Doreen's. I can't remember the name of the Facebook group I was in. That's really sad. But I was just in a Facebook group talking about idea pins, and of course your name came up because one of the tips you had given about like a year ago that they still remembered. So I am thrilled to have you here because you always have great stuff to share. And if you want to see more about Jennifer, which you will, if you don't now, you will in a minute. smartcreativesocial.com. Let me know where you're watching from. I see Shamu. And hello. So if you have questions, please drop them in and we will share and answer. So I did something that I have never done for Facebook Live, Jennifer. You want to guess what it is?
I don't know.
I think I already actually told you. I did not write an agenda with a million questions.
You guys are good at that. Like you've always been really good at like giving me a lot of questions and then I'll get it and I'm like, oh my gosh, they're going so deep.
Yeah, well, we're going to go deep today, but I thought, you know what? You and I both have been talking about this so much that we don't need an agenda. Right? Idea pins are the thing. So let's talk about when they first came out. Of course, they were story pins. They were in beta forever, and I couldn't get my hands on them forever. But you have a Pinterest group, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
What was the initial reaction in your Pinterest group when idea pins came out?
Oh, everybody was like, what the heck? We can't put a link on it. They want it to be pay for play. Like, why are they doing this? Like, we don't need another place to do stories. It was very negative and critical. And when we're coming from that place, right, we cannot creatively problem solve. We cannot innovate. So I think that affected a lot of people's results because they just were coming at it from like a place of resistance. It was very few people that embraced it and were like, okay, I'm gonna try this, and embraced it from a genuine place, right? Not embraced it from, well, if this is what they want me to do, I'm gonna work the system. But very few people embraced it from this genuine place of saying, okay, this is part of the Pinterest ecosystem. How can I work this in a authentic way into my strategy?
Yeah.
And have realistic expectations for the performance of these, right? Because we know Pinterest is pushing them up at the top of the feed. We all see that when we go there. So what people were trying to do is use it for the wrong thing. And it just created a lot of frustration for everyone, the pinners and the people making idea pins.
Yeah. So let's go down that road a little bit too, because I've seen conversations saying pinners don't like these. We don't like these, and pinners don't like them because you can't act on them. Well, why is that? Right.
Right.
It's because an idea pin is meant to have everything you could ever need to do the thing that you're trying to show them how to do in that pin, so that they don't have to go to your website. And like you were noticing, I noticed a lot of, I think of it a little bit as cheating, right? So doing just like sharing a regular old pin as an idea pin. No, doesn't work.
Those are hacks, right? And that's the thing I always tell everyone. They're like, what are the tips and tricks and what are the hacks? And I'm like, hacks expire. Yeah. And so why are you going to spend time learning how to do something that is going to be invalid in the next hour or 3 years? Who knows how long it's going to last? Like, why are we investing in learning that? I have a degree in math. So if I could share this little story, yes, please. It's very strange. And so I have a bachelor's in math. And one of the reasons that I got that is because when I was in school, I learned all the tricks, right? You cross multiply, you do this thing, you do that thing. And I had a lot of challenges in math because every time that I tried to apply the trick, the shortcut, I would do it wrong. I didn't know exactly when to use it and when not because I didn't understand the rationale behind the shortcut. Once I figured that out, math became fun and I changed my major. Actually, it was an English major and I added on a double major of mathematics because math actually became so fun and tutoring kids and helping them with math became so much fun because I understood the reason why we were doing the tricks. I think what happens with Pinterest is we don't really understand why we're doing the tricks. We just know this trick gets this result. And then when something changes and that trick no longer gets that result, we're like up Pooh Creek without a direction, right? Because we don't know why it worked. We don't know why we were doing it. We don't know what was behind that. And so it's just like me with math. I'm sitting there on the test, looking at the problems and going, I don't know if I cross multiply these fractions or if I do it straight across. I have no idea, right? That
I still don't know.
Disservice by telling you hacks and tricks all the time, because we're making you handicapped so that in the face of something that's unknown, which is what you will encounter with your clients if you're managing Pinterest, or what you'll encounter on your own Pinterest account, in the face of something unknown, you don't have the information to know what to do and how to get the result you want because you're relying on hacks.
Yeah, I could not agree more. And to me, you are the voice of Pinterest reason. There is no drama.
Take that crown.
Yeah, in Jennifer's world, there's no drama. All right. Well, we have some friends here. We have, let's see, Phoebe Moon, who is envious of your proximity to the beach. Yeah, right. We could all go for a walk together. That would be very nice. We have our friend Brian from the UK. Good evening. Good evening. I know Brian was hoping to make it over to the West Coast a few weeks ago. Unfortunately, that did not happen because, well, we don't even have to say why. And then we have also Jeff C., who says, 2 of my favorite people. Well, hey, Jeff, yeah, we miss having you on. All right. Okay. So let's talk about why Pinterest did this. They did not do this to torture us or to take something away from us. Why did they create story pins that now are idea pins?
Ooh, this is a good question. Because they just came out with that new feed thing, but I don't know. I don't know if it's totally related.
Wait, what?
Like, yeah, somebody posted in my group about it. But it looks more like Reels. I don't know. Anyways, I was going down another path, but
okay, we'll go back there later.
Yeah, we'll go there later. That's a good question. Like, okay, so I don't have like the inside track to like why Pinterest does things. You know, in my own facetious way, I'm like, Pinterest is like a teenager that's like, today they're emo and tomorrow they're preppy. And like, they're just trying to figure out who they are. And that's not necessarily, it makes it fun, but it's not necessarily helpful. So, you know, yes, Pinterest very much had become more and more search driven, and they lost a lot of the social part of the platform. And in the last year, Pinterest has really started pushing 2 new facets of the Pinterest experience. So search is still there, right? But then they also have shop, right? To encourage shopping. So you see more products, you see the shop tab on search, you see the shop tab on people's profiles. And then they're also pushing creators. And so they're making a shift from you creating content on your own site or your Etsy or your YouTube or wherever, your Instagram, and sending people there. They're now not getting rid of that, but they're adding in, oh, and guess what? Pinterest is a place that you can create a totally inclusive, complete idea on its own and share it here. And so that's where I think they're trying to compete with the Reels on Instagram, YouTube and YouTube Shorts, you know, TikTok and all of that, as, hey, we're not just a place where you promote your content and send people off platform, but we're a place where you can actually create a whole following, a whole business around it. And so they're talking about, like, they've got the creator fund where they're helping finance creators with grants to actually create content and get their message out there. They're supposed to be helping people work with brands and doing brand connections and that kind of thing. I have some mixed feelings about that because I think it speaks more to people that don't necessarily have a business yet than people that have a business. Because when you're first starting out, you start making content on platforms, right? You're like, I'm gonna put it on my Instagram, I'm gonna grow a YouTube channel. And there becomes a point in people's business evolution, and we really see this starkly with YouTubers, where they say, I'm building my house on rented land, and if they change something, I'm not going to be able to run my business. So I need to now build my own thing. And usually we see this with YouTubers around the 60 to 100K subscribers level, where they start building their own website and getting people to go from YouTube to their own website. So it's kind of interesting because on Pinterest, most people who were promoting on Pinterest already had their own website or some other presence off Pinterest and were using Pinterest to send traffic there. Now Pinterest is saying, well, we want to go to the people that aren't at that level. We want to have something to appeal to the more beginners who don't have another place, and we want them to create fully fledged ideas on Pinterest using our idea pin surface or our idea pin feature, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. It bothers me. It bothers me.
Okay.
Because I'm like, I don't know. Like, maybe it's making things more accessible for people. Because at some point, right, when you've got your own site and you've got enough of a following, you don't need Pinterest to go to brands for you and broker deals. You're doing that yourself, right? You don't need the middleman. So it feels like it's very beginner focused, and that just might be, that's my lens looking at it. But it's a little confusing to me because I'm like, that's not really who was putting content on there before. And I think that might be what a lot of the bloggers are feeling, is like, we're being left out, right?
Yep. I agree.
And there's a sentiment that Pinterest built their business on the backs of our content, right? And so there's a little bit of animosity, resentment there over this focus on the newer creator who cares if they don't have an outbound link. They don't have anything to send anyone to, right? Now, I also can understand, like, yes, I built my business on Pinterest. Are you kidding me? I made a heck of a lot of money from all the traffic Pinterest sent me. So I feel like there was a symbiosis there.
Yes. Right.
And not just off me selling a Pinterest program. I made a heck of a lot of money and still do off of the traffic Pinterest sends to my site.
Yeah, that's great.
I'm not Pinterest business, my DIY blog. But yeah, so I think it's kind of interesting. It's like, maybe those people, maybe Pinterest is seeing a bigger picture than what we see, right? Maybe they're saying, hey, we want to be a place to have those people who are beginning, to give them a way to engage, to give them a way to contribute, to give them a way to participate. And then we know they'll transition up, because they have not yet said that they are going to get rid of, at least as far as I can tell, they have not yet said we're going to get rid of anything with outbound links.
No, they have not. No.
I've heard some things, but I think the users would be like Facebook tried that, right? Facebook tried to diminish the reach of stuff. Instagram's tried that with, like, your swipe up doesn't really work anymore, but people still manage to get people to go off platform.
Yeah. I think they're realistic in their expectations to some extent, and part of that is evident by what Maria brings out. It's a great opportunity for small influencers to tag brands and referral links without having a proper website. Yeah. Absolutely. So, okay, I have two other thoughts on why idea pins. I want to see what you think.
I want to know.
Okay, so one of them kind of ties into what you said. Pinterest came out and said, hey, we used to connect pinners with ideas, and now we want to connect pinners to content creators. So, like you said, like, they had kind of lost that social aspect, and now they're trying to bring it back in. And I think this has a lot to do with how many Gen Z users joined Pinterest last year. What do you think?
I'm the mother of a Gen Z user, and oh my God, I so want my daughter to come. We've been talking about doing some lives. So she's 22.
Yeah. Okay.
And she's using Pinterest to plan her entire, like, wedding, engagement, everything. And her boyfriend is so cute because he's like, okay, Katie, just pin what you want. Like, I need to know what kind of things, like, pin the engagement that you want to have happen, because I don't know what to do.
That's
so
cute.
he's like so grateful, because she's like, okay, I'm planning it. I'm going to put it on there, because he's like, I don't want to screw it up. Right. Because he had some ideas and she's like, I don't like that idea. And he's like, I thought it was good. I thought it was good too. But anyway, so they're using Pinterest to plan this. And so she and I sat and I watched how she's using Pinterest. And because she is a user. So she's planning things. She's planning some stuff she's actually going to purchase. But I saw her engage with an idea pin, and I said, hey, Katie, what do you think of that thing? Because she's like, yeah, I pinned this recipe, blah, blah, blah. And I said, that's an idea pin. She's like, it is? I didn't realize it was. I said, yeah, you see the little icon where you can go through the panel. She's like, oh, I didn't even think to do that. And she's like, I was trying to tap it to get to the link to go to the site, because she's trained that way, right? We know that that's what we do. And so she's like, oh, this is kind of interesting. She's like, yeah, I didn't know how to use those. And she just kind of, and I thought, oh, this is so interesting. I'm like, what can we learn from this? That the user doesn't know how to use the idea pin. And for us, that if we wanted to use idea pins in a really good way, how do we get the user to understand they need to swipe through? Apparently Pinterest isn't communicating that well. So how do we communicate that? Because for us, the ROI is in that last panel where they can follow, right? That's like one of the biggest places for ROI for us. If they're just tapping it and not going anywhere, and then like, and going to the next thing, we've lost all that opportunity.
Yes, I agree. Now, if you start your idea pin though with a video, it's a little bit more obvious, I think, because as soon as you click on the pin, it plays through and it will advance for you. But I know a lot of people are adding arrows, like keep swiping for more ideas. And I'll do that sometimes, like keep going if you want to see what materials I used, because I know those are engagement signals that Pinterest looks at, like people advancing from page to page. But it's funny you said that, like she wasn't even aware that they existed, because I had the same conversation with my hairstylist a couple weeks ago. And she's like, what are idea pins? And I showed her, she's like, oh yeah, I've seen those. Like she just didn't notice any difference. So right. I don't know what to make of that. But
it's kind of interesting. Like, so if they're not noticing a difference, are they going to notice a difference when the ones with links go away? I mean, my daughter was like sitting there. She's like, oh, it's so annoying. Like sometimes I can't find the link to get to the thing and I want to get to the recipe. And I asked her, I said, well, would you make some of these recipes? Because this is a big thing with food bloggers. Oh, well, with Rich Pins, it shows the full recipe.
Yes, I remember that.
And the same with idea pins. Why would I put the full recipe on the idea pin? And she's like, no, I still want to click over because it's easier to see on their website. There's more pictures. There's usually more step-by-step. And so I was like, okay, she's like, I can see the ingredients list, but that doesn't mean that I know how to make it from the ingredients list. And I was like, oh, it's so interesting. So I think like, even if Pinterest tried to take the links away, the users would at some point have some kind of fatigue or irritation about it, not have their needs met, and then be like, I'm just going to go to Google to figure out how to make this. Right. And that's what Pinterest doesn't want.
Right. All right. So, I want to show you something though.
All right.
Okay. This is my idea pin that has done the best. And it makes me happy to look at it because I have 414,000 impressions. Get this glare on there. The numbers for follows and profile visits. I lost these numbers for weeks, but they came back this morning. Very happy about this. Nice. Yeah. So, you probably are getting, oops, there they go. Clicks to your website from idea pins, right? They're going to your profile and then they're clicking on your website link. So you're probably going to see like more direct traffic from Pinterest.com rather than a specific pin. Look for that because that might be happening. We have some thoughts here from Brian. I think if people find the link on the pin doesn't work, they tend to click to the profile. And I've noticed my daily following has increased. Yes, I'm sure it has, Brian. And you can look on those on pin analytics. You should be able to see by how much like each pin is contributing to your growth. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm curious like how Pinterest looks at the user behavior and interprets it, because if I was just watching my daughter using Pinterest, I would have made some assumptions, and having the ability to actually talk to her and ask her, well, why are you doing that? Well, what is going on here? And why, you're tapping, what are you expecting to have happen? That put it in a much different light for me. So, I'm curious like how Pinterest is interpreting that. And we're going to see, like, they're going to see it in the at the end of the day, everything comes down to money. So people aren't coming and they're not looking and they're not getting their eyeballs on ads. They're going to make less money. So they will make shifts at some point. Like people are like, oh, they just broke it. And I was like, dude, it comes down to money. They're not going to break it enough that they're going to lose money. So at some point it'll hit a critical mass and they'll be like, whoa, we messed something up. We got to fix it.
Yeah. I am intrigued by the possibility of advertising, like promoting your idea pins, because it's very clear that they're planning to do that. but I love that you can tag products in there. So if I am a product seller, I love idea pins because they're engaging, they get a ton of distribution. And then when people click on them, the products show up right underneath the description. Incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
But if I am a blogger, how do I translate that into something that works for me? And we talked a little bit about influencer deals, right? You can tag products from other people. You can use affiliate links. You can mention other companies. I don't know. How are you seeing them work for more typical bloggers?
Yeah, so I do want to say something about what you just said about companies tagging their products, because there are a lot of companies that don't want to engage in content marketing. And we have some people who are VAs or Pinterest managers inside my program that they have clients like this. They just have their shop or their Etsy shop, and they don't have a blog or any kind of content. So what do they pin? So they're using idea pins as their how-to content, as their like content marketing, and tagging their products and not doing the blog, which is kind of an interesting way to use them, because then you're still educating, you're still attracting people who are into that product. But you don't have to build a site. So that's cool. So then with bloggers, it's like, whoa, we have all this stuff. We have all that stuff on our site. I think with bloggers, we have to be really, really creative with how we use idea pins. One of the biggest mistakes I've seen people do is they say, these 3 posts are my #1 on Pinterest, so now I'm going to make an idea pin for them. And what you've done is essentially outrank yourself, your standard pin, with an idea pin sharing the idea, and removed any reason for someone to click to your site. So I think we have to be really strategic about it. So there has been talk about we could possibly use affiliate links for the products.
Yes, you can.
So far, no one I know has been able to do it with any Amazon links.
No.
Not yet. Reward style, or there's only certain ones that right?
Rakuten Advertising and Shop Style, I think.
Oh, Shop Style. Okay.
I think.
So you still have there's still some limitations there. So then it's asking yourself, okay, am I going to work with companies and have them be a sponsor? Am I going to make my own products that I can tag that makes sense? Am I going to sign up for one of those affiliate programs and tag the product? And then what is the content in the idea pin? And what are the results that I'm going to look for to measure if it was successful or not? And so an example that I give is like, let's say you had a spaghetti bolognese recipe that is amazing on Pinterest, does so good, and you want more people following you that are into your Italian food, homemade Italian recipes. How do you get them in there without giving your spaghetti bolognese recipe in an idea pin? Well, you think about what are the other things that people who are looking for that recipe have as concerns. What do they need to know? What do they, I just had like 40 ideas, right? Like, what are the different types of tomatoes that you use to make for sauce? Not every tomato is good for making homemade sauce. How do I prep my spaghetti and not have it be sticky? Or if my spaghetti was sticky, what the heck do I do with it now? Like, how do I deal with that? That complements what my content is, right? I'm not giving it all away. It attracts people that are into what I'm into. It's not something I'd write a whole blog post on. So I could then do exactly what the product people are doing and make an idea pin that has content I'm not going to put on my site. And I get them interested in what I'm into. So then and it's a full idea.
Yep.
It's what Pinterest wants, a full idea, but it's not my best ideas that I'm making money off of on my site.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Absolutely, it does. Yeah, and Maria has tried some other affiliate programs or Restyle Works sometimes. Depends on the landing page. Nordstrom and Walmart. Okay, I did not know. Abercrombie's not working. I know Amazon is not working, but they're adding more all the time. So I just tell people, just try it. If it doesn't work, they'll just tell you. Nothing to lose. But that's a great idea, Jennifer. I love that idea of thinking of something kind of around it. Like you could even do how to get spaghetti sauce out of a white tablecloth.
I mean, there's so many things. And then you say, follow my profile for my best Italian food recipes, including my spaghetti bolognese. Like you have so much latitude with what you can put on the idea pin. And I think we kind of just get stuck and this is probably rewriting. I mean, oh my gosh, I'm guilty of this, you guys. We marketers, we like screw stuff up, right? We look for the ways to
always
exploit
do.
it.
Yeah.
And so I was like, make 100 pins for a post, right? And so we got into this place of just churning out stuff, and we have to shift now and away from that idea and shift more to a place of like being really intentional with what we're making, really clear on what the results are that we expect and how we're going to measure it. And that all means moving much slower. It's not about volume anymore. It's more about the quality and the being extremely clear on what we expect. And so we're not churning out a ton of idea pins. You don't need to make 40 idea pins a week, like, or crazy stuff like that.
How many are you seeing people aim for?
I'm seeing people do like one a week or anywhere between one a week and one a month. And Pinterest came out with that creator program, and they sent an email a couple months ago that said, in order to stay active in the creator program, you need to publish one idea pin a month.
Yes. So. Yeah. I feel like that was about like being in the community, but it is a good guideline. Like that's kind of the bare minimum to get success. Yeah. Okay. So if we're thinking about, all right, I want to talk to you about static pins, regular old pins. Are any of those still working for people? Do you feel like?
Yeah, I think, again, it's a change in expectation. And we saw this with Google. It's so funny because it's like we go through these evolutions with these social media platforms over and over again. And then when another one does it, we act surprised. We're like, wait, we already saw this with other platforms.
Right.
So, I look at the evolution of it as like Pinterest was a free-for-all. It was the Wild West. And then
it was fun. Yeah.
Yeah. And it still kind of is, right? And then they were like, okay, you need to do fresh pins because we're showing the same ideas to everyone. So everybody's like, all right, we're going to do fresh pins. You want fresh pins? We're going to give you some fresh pins. We're going to give you like hundreds of them. And
see how you like that.
All the same, but we're just going to change the font. And, like, there you go. Happy birthday. And so, we did that. And then Pinterest was like, that is not what we were asking you to do.
No, they need to watch their words with us marketers.
Right. So we were like, well, we asked you guys for guidance. And so then they're like, okay, that's not what we meant. So this was last year that they did this. They're like, we are going to mark you as spam. We're going to diminish your reach and then mark you as spam if you're just like pumping out stuff over and over and it's the same thing over and over. That's not what we meant. They still didn't really clarify what they meant. So then what we're seeing in analytics happening is everybody's like, only my old pins are performing and my new stuff is bombing. So my conclusion is I won't make new stuff. And it's like, no. Like, I don't know. It was very clear to me what they're doing. And maybe I have it wrong, but this is what I think they're doing based on the numbers. Is when you look at an old pin, right? The minute you put a pin on Pinterest, it starts collecting data about it. It's like, okay, what do we think this pin is about? It's about tacos. So we're going to put a little taco label on there. And if you look at the engineering blog, Pinterest talks all about how they label stuff. And so, okay, we put taco label on there. So we're going to match it to some people who like tacos. But it's like, but we're not going to show it to everyone because we don't know how it's going to do. And we don't know if it's spam and we don't know if it sucks. So we're going to show it to like maybe 1 million people like tacos, but we're going to show it to like 1,000. And then we're going to see what those 1,000 people do. And we're going to sit back and punt and let it simmer and get more data and get more data. And then, somebody else just pinned that taco pin to Mexican food recipe boards. Oh, we got some new information about it from this other user. So maybe we refine the labels a little bit. We're going to show it to people who like tacos and Mexican food. So we'll show it to another 1,000 people. And it's so slow because it used to be that you put a pin up and Pinterest is like, ta-da, we're going to show it to everybody.
We love you. Yes.
And so we got used to that. And now they're being cautious. So if you think about as time goes by, of course your old pins are performing. Pinterest has 4 years of data on who most responds to that pin, what combination of labels works the best. Yeah. And so of course it's showing that stuff to people. Thank God it's showing that stuff to people, because what that tells us is that we have to go from what I call, like, we used to plant grass, right? You put grass seed out in less than a week, you've got grass growing and it's so amazing. That's how Pinterest used to be. Now we're planting oak trees. You put it in the ground and you're just like waiting, and nothing's happening. And then all of a sudden one day you look behind you at all the pins that you've planted, all the oak trees you've planted, and you're like, oh my gosh, there's a forest. But it took time. And we've got to shift from expecting to throw out seeds and have it sprout right away It just doesn't work that way anymore. But we also have to keep throwing out seeds because we know that what we're doing is planting the forest of tomorrow. We're planting our traffic
the
for tomorrow.
forest of tomorrow. I love that. Yeah. Yeah. I could not agree more. Comment from Brian about frequency of idea pins. He was doing every other day. I don't know how you do that. But no, come on. You got to get out there and enjoy Barcelona. Come on.
He's in Barcelona.
He is in Barcelona.
Oh my gosh, how cool is that?
I know, right?
I think, with that kind of thing, there's, again, like, we screwed it up. We were like, okay, you got to do 10.4 pins a day, like, goals and where I want to go, right? If Pinterest is hypersensitive to a spammy experience right now, hypersensitive to user experience, then we should only be putting things on there that are really going to give us an ROI, that are really going to give us a benefit. And that all means optimization up front. So we shouldn't be making, checking off, I did 3 idea pins today, because that's the old way, but it's really hard to break out of that, right? It's like we're learning in diet culture, right? That, low fat is bad. And so you're trying to break away from it and you're like, should I put I don't know if I should put butter on this or not. I have no idea.
Someone tell me what to do. Yeah.
Right. And we're just like, and it's kind of like that with Pinterest. We're having to break some old patterns that are really hard to break because it gave us so many good results. And now we're having to change it. And we're not really having that guidance from Pinterest. Pinterest is like, look, you did this wrong. You did this wrong. You did this wrong. And we're like, okay, I'm doing everything wrong. I don't know. I'm going to quit. Right. We're just like, we see we're getting smacked all over, like in our impressions and our traffic. And we're like, accounts are getting suspended. And so it's hard to stay motivated and be like, I want to keep trying when I feel like I'm hitting my head against the wall. And so really slowing down, pulling back and going, why am I pinning this? What result do I expect from pinning this? What new information, especially when it comes to fresh pins and even idea pins, what new information do I want to tell Pinterest about, if you're pinning to a URL, about this URL or this destination? Or if it's an idea, what new information do I want to tell Pinterest about the audience that I most want to attract?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think from there too, it's what new and fresh information do I have for people on Pinterest? If you have a fantastic banana bread recipe, it's not going to go anywhere, because they have 9 million banana bread recipes. So I think it goes back to also, like, when you're creating the content, think about how can I make this new and fresh and exciting, which I think is a lot to ask of people, right? Because what is there that hasn't been done? But
and this is the banana bread example is such a good example, because it used to be that you could make a banana bread recipe and you were one of 3 people on the internet that had one. Yeah. So the bar was really low. What we're seeing, and this happened on every platform, but now I feel like this is happening across the board. Competition is higher and higher and higher for things. If you don't already rank number 1, the people who rank number 1 for those things on Pinterest, Google, etc., are going to keep that spot. They're going to work to keep that spot unless they check out and then you can go to overtake it. It's going to be really hard to get that kind of traffic. That's what I see people. They're like, I'm going to be a food blogger. I'm going to get 1 million page views a month. I'm like, I don't know that that's necessarily possible or even necessarily necessary anymore. Because the competition is so high, we've got to become more specialized, targeted, optimized when we're looking at what to create. So maybe the banana bread recipe that you're like, I really want to create this because it's my grandma's, blah, blah, blah. That's great. We got to look at, okay, what are the needs of the market? What's missing in the market? What are they looking for? And where can I fill that in to differentiate myself from the 9 million other banana bread recipes? And so maybe, and this is just me going off the top of my head, right? You got to do the research. Maybe people are looking for, what do I do with leftover banana bread or stale banana bread? Like, what can
or how do I make vegan banana bread, or just something more specific?
Yeah. And I think too, it's like, what's the special? What's the special? What's the spin on it? Like, I think we lose that because we're so focused on churning out lots and lots of content. And this is one thing that I have a new group coaching program that we're doing right now. We're in the founders round. And so it's sold out and we're running it. But one of the things I say in there all the time is, like, we want to identify where we have some authority and become the authority.
That's
So
great.
I've done this over and over and over on Pinterest and Google to be like not just number one for this one topic, but like to be like everything I own that keyword. Like I got like a bunch of posts on it. And I think we have this resistance to that because we're like, oh, we want to go to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And if they want banana bread from me, then they also want, spaghetti recipe, and they also want my meatloaf. And it's like, not necessarily. So I think there's just a real shift in how we have to think about, especially for bloggers, and how we have to think about what it is that we're trying to accomplish online, who we're serving, and how we can better serve them, because they don't need another banana bread recipe.
No, they do not. Jana has a great comment that Pinterest is different because it forces creators to have patience and think things that creators are not used to. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think every platform has a level of that, like YouTube. How many people do you know are on YouTube and they're just like, it's just not sticking, it's not sticking, it's not sticking, right? And we take that to mean a lot of things that it probably doesn't mean, right? Like my content sucks, or Pinterest hates me, or
oh, that's my favorite. Yeah, Pinterest really doesn't care about you.
Right. I was like, I wish Pinterest cared about us that much. Oh my gosh, that'd be awesome, but they don't.
Wouldn't it?
And so then what does it really mean? Right? Like there's this really awesome quote that I got the other day. I was listening to something from Brene Brown. And so I'm going to pull it up on my phone so that I can read it, because it just really struck me as so awesome. When failure is not an option, innovation is also not an option. And so for the people that like are like, I'm going to throw the towel in on Pinterest because Pinterest is drunk right now, right? That's what a lot of people will say. We're not allowing for the innovation that happens that then becomes the tactics and the strategies and the approaches that are successful, right? The only way we find out the things that work is because somebody's on there trying it and risking failure. Right. And so you can't, like, this is what I say to people in my program all the time. You cannot do it wrong. You cannot make a mistake by being on Pinterest. It's really about what results do you expect? And then how do you refine, pivot, optimize, do all those things when you're not getting the results that you want. Right. Yeah. So it's not about like you're a bad person or you did it wrong or you're going to make a mistake or it's not perfect enough. Every time that every pin is an experiment. So every time you pin, whether that's an idea pin or a standard pin or a video pin or whatever, octopus pin, whatever they come out with next, whatever you do, it's an experiment. So you put it out there and then know that it's got to simmer. It's got to simmer for a while, right? Yeah. The thing I see people that's crazy making is they pin a pin and they start tracking individual pin statistics. And I'm like, what are you going to do with that information?
Yeah.
Like, I only want to know what's rising to the top.
Right.
And then I'm like, okay, what did I do there? What happened there? Right.
Yeah.
Like, so I don't know. I'm just going on like a whole diatribe right now.
Well, Brian brings up a point which I think will prompt memory for us, you and me. The old quick win way of doing got me to 8.5 million monthly views. Then last month that dropped 4.1 million because I carried on posting the same way. So you're probably thinking of the same post I am in a Facebook group. I'm doing the same thing I've always done and it's not working. I mean, they answered their own question right there, right?
Well, and I think that's what's so hard because we get attached. We feel like I thought I checked that box off. I thought I fully learned that and I moved on and I stopped paying attention.
Right.
And then you come back and it's a little bewildering. It's like coming back to a city you haven't been to for 20 years. And some things are familiar, but other stuff you're like, wait, there used to be a road here. Where's the grocery store? Like it's a little like jarring, right? When you have that realization and then you're like, well, I'm going to drive this way that I normally would have driven. You're like, wait, that road's not there anymore. That's what we're experiencing on Pinterest. And so this is why I always tell people it's important to be in your analytics. Like we advise to collect KPIs every week. A lot of other people are like, collect them every month. And I'm like, one, that's a whole lot of data to collect and discern. But two, if you're in there regularly and it just becomes part of your workflow, you'll see things and you'll make micro little changes so that you don't have that jarring experience. And you're not only noticing things when it goes really wrong off a cliff. You're like, interesting. My numbers are down a little bit this week. I wonder what's going on. Oh, let me check. And you can find good reasoning for stuff. You're like, oh, a big blogger pinned this pin 6 months ago. It's dropping off from the top. That's what's happening. It's not that my account is dead. It's that pin ran its course. So what am I going to do now? Right? A lot of times we see people making an assumption that like their whole account's doing bad when really it's like 1 or 2 pins that were seasonal, or that some big person pinned, and then it's just kind of like dropping out of the rotation.
Yep.
But we don't see that if you only check it every 6 months. Right? We just see a drop.
Right. Yeah, that's an excellent point. Oh, I had a thought. Okay, let's talk more about idea pins themselves. So I made a couple on desktop. I hope I never have to do that again. What are some of the kind of workflow things or tools that you use or recommend people use for idea pins?
So I hope this is okay to share that I'm going to be doing an idea pin workshop in October.
Yes, please.
So if you guys go to my site that Elisa has displayed here and you sign up to get my free roadmap, you'll be in my emails. You're going to get all my stuff. You're going to be in the funnel. You're going to get marketed to. I'm just warning you now. That's going to happen. But in there, I'll be talking about, I'll have the sign up and everything ready. Anyone who's on the list will get that for the idea pin workshop. And one of the bonus days that we're going to do is a like side-by-side work along with me workflow to make idea pins as part of your larger strategy. So one of the things that I see people doing is they're like, I'm only going to do idea pins, or I'm only going to do video pins because they're doing well. And Pinterest in the engineering blog has shared about like their, that they have set up like algorithms, essentially, for lack of a better word, that within any type of surface on Pinterest, there's so many slots for idea pins, so many slots for video pins, so many slots for standard pins. So you need to make all of them so you have a chance for your stuff to show up in any of those slots. If you're only focusing on one, then you don't want to, then you're going to miss out on the other slots. So as part of the workflow for idea pins, it goes into the larger workflow of all the pins that you're going to be making. Yeah. So like, let's talk about the spaghetti bolognese recipe, right? When we're thinking, okay, what is my approach going to be for this? I'm going to make some fresh pins for it. Maybe I just updated the post, so I've got new information that I can give to Pinterest about it. Maybe I got a new board that I want to put that pin on, that again, the board will give new information to Pinterest about that recipe. So then where does the idea pin fit in? So as you're creating those other pins, start thinking about, okay, how do I create my idea pin? That maybe the idea pin is going to focus on the types of tomatoes that are best for, you know, the 3 types of tomatoes that are the best for making homemade sauce. How do I know how do I pick the tomatoes? How do I know which ones to choose? Can I freeze them? And, you know, maybe you have like 3 tips in there, right? And that's your idea pin. And then the final slide is you saying, hey, you can use these tomatoes, any of these tomatoes, to make this recipe that I have on my site. Make sure you follow me to go see all my recipes right here on Pinterest. And then they have that call to action. So how do you make those images? You can do it all in Pinterest editor. It's really hard with your experience, and it's a little glitchy and it's a little cumbersome. Yeah. So wherever you're making your other pins, make your idea pins in there as well, right? So like I use Canva. I will make them all at the same time. And just that's part of my workflow. Today, I'm working on the spaghetti sauce recipe post. So everything I'm doing is that in my Canva account. Then I'll save the images. But what I do is I don't put all the text on the images.
Yeah.
I like to use Pinterest editor for idea pins, because one of the things we saw was a glitch, but it gave us a lot of insight into how idea pins work. Pinterest sometimes will glitch and it won't display the text on the idea pin correctly. So to me, that means that like if you made the text editor, you put a little title on there, and sometimes it's weird. That means that it's not actually like taking that and baking it into the image like Canva does. Right. It's like text,
like a variable.
Yeah. Right. So that means that Pinterest can read that and use that in different ways than if it was just stuck on the image. So you can design your whole image with all kinds of other great stuff that Pinterest or that the pinner needs to know. Like, so if I was doing the tomato example, I might put the name of that tomato type and like 3 tips for it on the idea pin. But what does Pinterest need to know about the idea pin to show it to the right people? That's what I'm going to use the idea pin editor for, is to put that text on the pin, on the idea pin. So I might, when I'm designing, have a little slot that I'm like, that's where I'm going to put my title.
Yeah,
I know that Pinterest wants that. And then, but I'm not going to use their editor for all of the slides because it probably doesn't need all the minutia of like Roma tomatoes are good for blah, blah, blah. Does that make sense? So there'll be some decision making ahead of time.
Yep. Yeah. And I had made that assumption without having seen that glitch that Pinterest was better able to use text that you add natively. And also too, that Brian was creating some idea pins that the first page looked like a standard designed pin, right? And those weren't really working for him. And I thought, well, that makes total sense, because what people want is going to feel more like a reel. It's going to feel more like a TikTok. It's going to feel more like in the moment rather than designed. So I've been making mine on my phone. And I think, you know, if you're a content creator, kind of like what I do for my paintings, I think ahead of time, like, what am I going to want for an idea pin for this? And if you're a food blogger, you're doing this already, right? Because you're going to put it on Instagram, you're going to put it on a reel. So you have all the stuff you need, right? So then it's just a matter of getting on Pinterest. And I did a step-by-step yesterday. If anybody wants to see it, it's on my YouTube channel, but it's also in the most recent blog post. It's just a step-by-step using every single feature you could possibly use. It took 25 minutes. So it's not nothing, right? It takes a considerable amount of time, but there's a lot you can do if you just kind of plan ahead.
Yeah. And I think too, like, you can do something like challenge yourself that, okay, when I do my idea pin this week, I'm going to try one new feature.
Yep.
Right. So you're getting used to different features, seeing what resonates with your audience, what works best with what you're presenting as far as your content.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I like that idea a lot.
All right. So again, if you're wanting to do this, but you need a little bit of help, maybe some accountability, there's your accountability partner right there. And I'm going to bring up a comment from Jana. She was in your class before, and you give necessary tough love. Yes. We all need that in our business sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So let me see. Does anybody have any questions for Jennifer before we let her get back to her beach walking and whatever glamorous things she's doing with her life?
It sounds so much more glamorous than it is. Like, there's a lot of sand involved. So
sand is good. Yeah. Sand is very good. Yeah.
And seaweed.
Sand and seaweed and a little salt water. You're all set. Yeah. I love it. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm excited about idea pins. I'm getting engagement on there. I'm having actual conversations with humans on there.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. I thought I would not.
Yeah, I mean, and I think too, it's like we had mentioned this. Okay, we were talking a little bit before we got on the call here, and when we're coming from a place of like resistance, because, you know, it's easy to be overwhelmed in your business and be like, oh my God, another new thing. It's really hard for us to be creative and to see the possibilities and the opportunity there when we're in that place. Yeah, and so if we can get out of that place, it's okay to have that reaction, but we can get out of that place as fast as possible and get to a place where we're like, okay, what can I do with this? Right? Like, they may be seeing some bigger picture than me. I still want to get results on this platform. So what's possible for me with this? How can I best and change it, even reframing it a little bit to, how can I best serve my audience with this? How can I use this for that? It'll get us to a place where we can be innovative, and then it's fun. Like, who doesn't love having results? You get the comments, you get the engagement, you get the follows, and you're just like, heck yeah, that's super fun. Like, so let's get to that place, because, you know, it's miserable just sitting there like kvetching about it and not being able to move forward. Yeah.
Yeah. Like when you blog about something that, like, you put your heart and soul into, you put out a standard pin, you get 3 impressions. You know, it's just sad. Yeah. So to me, idea pins is how to get excited about Pinterest again, right? Keep doing the other stuff, because like you said, it's a simmer, right? It's gonna bubble up if it's good content. But idea pins is a nice little instant gratification.
And I think, one of the things that we lose so much when we're thinking about Pinterest in the context of all the stuff we have to do, we're like, I got to do story pins, I got web stories, I got to do, I'm like, oh my gosh, like how do I do YouTube shorts? Like it's so much. On all those platforms, at least most of them, like especially Instagram and Facebook with the stories and Snapchat, that stuff expires like in 24 hours. On Pinterest, every single thing you put on there is evergreen forever and ever and ever. It is like a fine wine. It starts out as like grape juice, but it's like a fine wine. It gets better and better and better as it ages. Pinterest has more and more information. So even your idea pins are there forever. Like no other platform does that. So I'm like, how can you screw it up?
I know. And have you noticed at all that they get a kind of a push at the beginning, and then they'll go down, but then they steadily go back up again? Mm-hmm. So if you're seeing that dip after the first release, don't get discouraged because it'll probably come back up.
I mean, yeah, when I see that, I'm just like, oh, they're gathering data. They're gathering data and refining, and then okay, they're going to show it again.
Yeah. Or if you see it drop to 0, like I did, I was like, oh, it's a glitch. I'm not even going to waste 30 seconds thinking about it because I'm going to come back in 3 days and it's going to be all better.
That's true. And this is the thing that like, as we are getting frustrated with it and we hear people saying that it's pay to play, I'm like, heck yeah, it's pay to play. That's amazing. So you can either put your content on there organically, let it simmer, let it be served at Pinterest whim, or you can pay money to be forced in front of the line, in front of those people's eyeballs.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. If everyone paid to play, right? If it was really paid to play, then everything on Pinterest would be an ad and nobody would go there because it would all be ads. So as they have more and more of a push for ads, more and more of a demand for ads, the demand for good organic content to put between the ads goes up. So like let these ad people subsidize the distribution of your free organic content.
Yeah. Or spend $10 and promote a pin because or both. Right. Because I have done that and I'm like, why is this one pin still doing well organically? Oh, it's because I promoted it. There is a major downstream impact on your organics if you promote them even just a little tiny bit. So yeah, I would do it. Okay. Question from Jana. Your new course, your workshop, is that going to help with e-commerce?
The idea pin workshop?
Yeah,
we're going to talk about how to create idea pins, but really more what are the expectations and how to measure results with idea pins, because everybody's like traffic, sales. And it's like, well, this is a little harder to connect the dots on the idea pin with that. So and we'll talk about how to position your content so you are not then cannibalizing your other stuff that does really well, like your existing high performers on Pinterest. Yeah. And you're also then using it in just a really, really strategic, purposeful, intentional way.
Yes, the Jennifer way. Okay, we love it. All right. Well, we're going to wrap it up for today. This was Elisa Meredith and Jennifer Priest talking about how to get started with idea pins. I hope if you haven't created some that now you're inspired to. If you've made some, like drop them in the comments so we can check them out. And we will see you again soon. Jennifer, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure to talk to you.
Likewise. Take care, everybody.